For 4,500 years, one structure has absolutely dominated the landscape. A monument so huge, so ambitious, it still defies any easy explanation. We're about to dive into one of history's greatest engineering mysteries. How in the world was the Great Pyramid of Giza actually built? To really get your head around the scale of this thing, you have to start with the sheer weight. The Great Pyramid of Giza is estimated to weigh a whopping 6 million tons. Try to picture this. That's like stacking 16 Empire State Buildings on top of each other. We're talking about an unbelievable mass. But here's the kicker, the thing that makes it a true marvel. All of that monumental weight was lifted and put together without the tools we'd consider totally essential today. No cranes, no heavy machinery, they didn't even use the wheel for this. And that one fact, right there, turns an incredible achievement into a profound mystery. So this brings us right to the heart of our investigation. How did an ancient civilization, with just the most basic tools at their disposal, manage to build something that would be a serious challenge for even our best modern engineers?
I mean, think about this. For almost 4,000 years, this was the tallest man-made structure on the entire planet. It just feels impossible, and yet, there it stands. Okay, so let's set the scene. The whole story kicks off around 2560 BCE with the Great Pyramid, which was built for the pharaoh Khufu. Later on, his son Khafre and then his grandson Menkaura would add their own pyramids, creating that iconic Giza complex we all know. This wasn't just a one-off project, it was a dynastic, multi-generational statement. To even begin to understand how they pulled this off, we first need to appreciate the absolutely monumental challenge they were staring down. The pyramid is built from roughly 2.3 million individual stone blocks, and each one of those blocks, weighing several tons, had to be cut out of a quarry, somehow transported, and then lifted precisely into place. But, it wasn't just about brute force. The craftsmanship, the precision, was just mind-blowing. Some of the joints between these massive, multi-ton blocks are fitted so perfectly, you can't even slip a piece of paper between them. This is where immense power meets microscopic accuracy. So how do the experts explain all this? Well, let's investigate the prime suspect in this mystery, the most widely accepted idea, which is known as the ramp theory. The concept itself is pretty straightforward. The workers built these enormous ramps out of earth and brick, and then they hauled the massive stone blocks up on wooden sleds. Simple tools, maybe some water on the sand to act as a lubricant, and just an incredible amount of human power.
And right here, we have to bust a really common myth. The people who built the pyramids, they weren't slaves. Archaeological evidence from the villages nearby shows they were skilled, paid workers who were housed and fed by the state. This was a massive national project, a source of pride, not something done through coercion.
In fact, the whole thing was a huge logistical operation. For every person hauling a block, you had an entire support team behind them: cooks, carpenters, people carrying water, and expert stonecutters. It was basically a temporary city, with everyone focused on one single goal.
But hold on, the ramp theory isn't exactly a closed case. A single, straight ramp that was long enough to reach the very top would have been a monumental project, all on its own, maybe even bigger than the pyramid itself. This leaves a huge, critical question. How did they get those highest stones into place?
And whenever a mainstream theory has some big question marks, well, it opens the door for new and sometimes pretty radical ideas. So let's check out some of the alternative theories that really challenge the conventional wisdom.
One absolutely fascinating idea involves water. It's called the hydraulic lift theory, and it suggests a network of canals and locks could have been used to float the blocks upwards, essentially using water pressure as a kind of ancient elevator. Now, it's still pretty controversial, but it just goes to show you the creative thinking this puzzle inspires.
Then there's another theory that comes from a totally different field, material science. What if the blocks weren't all carved and lifted? The cast stone hypothesis suggests some of them were actually a type of ancient concrete, mixed right there and poured into molds on site. If that's true, it would completely change the entire logistical puzzle.
But maybe we're focusing a little too much on finding one single tool or one magic technique. Maybe the real answer, the unseen mastermind behind all of this, wasn't a ramp or a canal at all.
And the true secret weapon of the pyramid builders probably wasn't a physical tool, it was project management. The ability to organize, to feed, and to motivate thousands of people toward one single goal over decades. That is arguably an even greater marvel than any piece of engineering. And that kind of incredible organizational effort leads us to the final, and maybe the most important question of all. Why? Why would an entire civilization pour so much of its resources and energy into a single project? Well, because the pyramids were so much more than just tombs for the pharaohs. Of course, they were symbols of divine power, but they were also seen as mystical links to the heavens and literal, physical bridges to make sure the king had a safe journey into spiritual eternity. They were basically engines for securing eternal life. The motivation, when you boil it all down, was simple and profound. They were built to last forever. Every single stone was placed with the intention of achieving permanence. This wasn't just construction. This was a civilization making a tangible bid for immortality. So, in the end, we may never know the exact combination of tricks and techniques they used, but that uncertainty, it doesn't diminish the achievement at all. If anything, it enhances it. It reminds us that the pyramids stand as the ultimate monument to human ingenuity, to collaboration, and just sheer willpower. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. The ancient Egyptians built for eternity. In our world of disposable tech and fleeting trends, it makes you ask the question, what are we building today that will still be standing and still inspiring awe 4,500 years from now?